The fridge door was still open when she walked in. Not because I forgot to close it, but because I had been standing there for 45 minutes, staring at a bottle of almond milk I didn't remember buying. I didn't even hear the front door. Didn't hear her keys jingle. Didn't hear the suitcase wheels whisper across the hallway tile. All I heard was the hum of the compressor and the slow tick of the kitchen clock. I think it was broken. Or maybe time just didn't care anymore. She stood behind me and said, "Hey." Not, "I'm back." Not, "I missed you." Not even, "Sorry I didn't answer." Just, "Hey." I didn't turn around. She sighed and walked past me, into the living room like she never left. Like she hadn't been gone for 5 nights. Like she hadn't texted twice the whole time. Like Madison even went with her. The almond milk was still cold in my hand. I finally placed it back, shut the fridge, and walked over to the laptop I left open on the dining table. She had noticed it by then. She always notices things when it's too late. She asked, "What's that?" I said, "Start from the top." She sat. She read. And as she did, I watched her lips tighten. Her pupils shrink. Her fingers twitch. She read about the first time I saw her lie. The night she said her phone died. But her GPS history told another story. She read about the receipt I found for 2 entrees at a beachside cafe the same day. She told me she skipped lunch because she felt bloated. She read about the scent I couldn't name on her hair when she hugged me goodbye for the trip, the same scent that haunted our sheets in July. She read about the messages I never confronted her with, the ones I screenshot, then deleted, then pulled from the cloud when I couldn't sleep. She read about how I called her mother and pretended everything was fine, how I covered for her again, and again, and again. She read about how I cried on the 3rd night, not because she was cheating, but because I realized I was waiting for someone who wasn't even pretending to come back anymore. And then she got to the last line. I had typed it 3 hours before she returned. I didn't think she'd ever read it. "You're not here for me. You're just here to check if the locks have changed." She looked up at me with that "you don't understand" expression she wore like perfume. But I understood everything now, and I hadn't even said a word. Yet, she didn't cry. Not at first. She just sat there, eyes darting left to right, scrolling through the words like they were someone else's life. Her jaw clenched, her lips parted, but no sound came out. Occasionally, she blinked slowly, the way she always did when she was forcing herself not to react. I'd seen that look before, years ago, during an argument with her father. But back then, I wasn't the one she was holding it back from. I leaned against the doorway and watched her read. I was calm, disturbingly calm, like a man watching his house burn down and realizing he doesn't even care what's inside anymore. I had already lived this pain for days, while she was off the grid, reconnecting with a friend who was never there. She finally looked up, but only for a second. "You went through my stuff?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Instead, I walked into the kitchen, pulled the coffee pot from the machine, poured a mug, and left it in front of her. No sugar, no milk. Just how she used to take it before she stopped drinking coffee at home altogether. Before her mornings became silent routines filled with texts she pretended not to smile at. She didn't touch it. "What do you want me to say?" she asked, finally meeting my eyes. That I messed up? That it didn't mean anything? I chuckled. Not because it was funny, because it was scripted. Like she'd been rehearsing those words in the shower, in hotel mirrors, while watching the waves roll over her lies. "I don't want anything from you," I said. "I just wanted you to know that I know." Silence. A heavy, aching silence filled with things neither of us were brave enough to say. She bit her lip, and for the first time since she walked in, I saw something crack in her. A twitch of the eyebrow, a slight tremble in her fingers. Then she stood up, pushed the laptop closed, and said something I didn't expect. "I didn't go there to cheat on you, Waylon." I didn't answer right away. I was still chewing on her use of my name. She only used it when she wanted to sound serious. Or manipulative. Maybe both. She continued. "I just needed to feel like someone saw me. I needed to not be invisible for a few days." I smiled, finally, and it wasn't kind. "You were never invisible, Holly," I said. "You were just impossible to reach." She took a step toward me. "You don't understand what it's like to be with someone who makes you feel like a ghost." "No." I cut her off. "You don't get to play that card. I asked you, begged you for months, are you okay? Are we okay? And every time, you smiled that hollow smile and said you were just tired, that you needed space, that work was killing you, that I was being paranoid. And you were. she snapped, suddenly raising her voice. You made it feel like I couldn't breathe. Like if I wasn't constantly validating you, you'd fall apart. I laughed under my breath and turned toward the window. The clouds were rolling in. A storm was coming. How poetic. You're right, I said. I did fall apart. But not because I needed your validation. I fell apart because I was the only one in this marriage trying to keep the lights on while you were busy checking out the exits. Her silence hit harder than her words. Then, for the first time in days, she looked like the woman I married. Not the one who lied to me. Not the one who disappeared for a weekend and came back with sand still in her shoes and another man's name on her mind. For just a moment, I saw her. The real her. The tired, cracked, ashamed her. And then, it was gone. She asked quietly, "So what happens now?" I looked back at the laptop, then at the lavender towel draped over her suitcase, then at the clock. You unpack, I said, and I leave. And just like that, her face twisted, not in confusion, but in panic. She didn't believe I was serious, not at first. She gave a nervous laugh, the kind people give when a magician pulls a knife out of his hat instead of a rabbit, like she was waiting for the punchline. I didn't offer one. I just walked past her, pulled open the hallway closet, and grabbed the overnight bag I had packed 2 days earlier when I'd made my decision. When I realized she wasn't coming back the same. If she was coming back at all. You're being dramatic, she said behind me, her voice now sharp around the edges. You write some tear-jerking monologue, and now you think you're the victim? I stopped in the hallway and turned slowly. She was standing in the same spot, arms folded, weight shifted to one leg like she was bracing herself for a storm. It was a pose I'd seen before, at family dinners when politics came up, or when a coworker cornered her in a conversation she didn't want. But this time, I was the unwanted confrontation. The document wasn't for you, I said quietly. It was for me. You just happened to walk in before I deleted it. Oh, how poetic, she rolled her eyes. You're a tortured soul now? No, I said. I'm a man who finally stopped making excuses for someone who stopped choosing him a long time ago. Her jaw tightened, and that's when I noticed it. The smallest, most human twitch beneath the tough act. The way her bottom lip quivered for half a second before she bit it. She looked away, not out of guilt, but calculation. Like she was scanning through all her options, deciding which mask to put on next. You don't even know what really happened, she muttered, but it was half-hearted. Like she didn't believe herself anymore. I know enough, I said. And I know it didn't just happen. Affairs don't sneak into your luggage when you're packing for a trip. I didn't sleep with him, she snapped. That wasn't the part that hurt the most. I replied instantly, and her face changed. She froze, as if she didn't expect that answer. Like she thought that would be my line, the sex, the physical betrayal. But it wasn't. It never was. It was the silence. The months of turning away. The way she kept laughing at something on her phone and never shared the joke. The way she said good night, like it was a habit, not a feeling. It was when she stopped reaching for my hand in the middle of the night. It was when I realized I couldn't remember the last time she looked at me like I was hers. I don't even know who you are right now, she whispered, a touch of fear finally seeping into her voice. And that was the moment I understood something terrible. She had built a version of me in her head that was weak, dependent, and spineless. She had spent so long living next to that version of me that when the real one finally stood up, she didn't recognize him. I'm the man who waited, I said. Waited while you drifted. Waited while you stopped talking. Waited through your girls' nights, your sudden early morning workouts, your dead phone batteries, your tired excuses. I waited so long for you to come back that I started to believe maybe you never left. But now I see. You've been gone for months. You just forgot to pack your body. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, blinking too fast, like her vision had started to blur and she didn't want me to see it. I zipped up the overnight bag. Waylon, she said, stepping forward for the first time, you can't just. Yes, I can, I interrupted. And I am. Because if I don't go now, I'll end up staying again. And if I stay again, I'll forgive you again. And if I forgive you again, I'll lose whatever's left of me. That's when her voice cracked. Just a sliver. Just enough. You still love me, she said, more like a dare than a question. I do, I said honestly. But love doesn't survive in starvation. And I walked past her. She didn't follow. Not yet. But something in her face shifted again. Not the calm mask. Not the angry one. Not even guilt. It was something worse. Desperation. and I wasn't ready for what she was about to do next. I didn't even make it to the door before she spoke again, but this time, her voice didn't sound like hers. It was low, calculated, cold in a way that reminded me of glass before it shatters. If you walk out right now, I'll send it. I stopped, the doorknob already warm in my hand. What? I asked without turning around. I'm serious, she said. I didn't delete it. The draft is still sitting there in my outbox. I turned, slowly. She was standing a few feet from the dining table now, arms loose at her sides, but her fingers were twitching, like she couldn't decide whether to clench or run. I narrowed my eyes. What draft? She didn't blink. The one I wrote after the second night. When I thought maybe you were the one pulling away. When I thought maybe you'd found someone too. I was hurt, Waylon. Confused. And I told Madison I wanted to write you something just in case I don't know, ended up doing something reckless. I stepped back from the door, not because I cared about the message, but because the tone in her voice unsettled me. It wasn't regret. It wasn't an apology. It was a trap. She walked over to the laptop and opened the lid. The screen lit up instantly, no password. She tapped a few keys and clicked open her email. She didn't hide it. She wanted me to see. The subject line hit me like a slow-moving bullet. If this ruins us, I hope it was worth it. She opened the draft and stepped aside. Read it, she said. Since you're so sure you've got everything figured out. I didn't want to. I should have walked away. But something about the way she stood, arms crossed but eyes wide, vulnerable in a way that didn't match her words, made me curious. So I read it. And halfway through, my hands started to sweat. Not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't say. There were no details. No confession. Just implications. Phrases like, you've stopped looking at me the way you used to. I feel like I'm disappearing in my own home. If I do something terrible, I want you to know it wasn't because I didn't love you. It was vague. Weaponized vulnerability. A pre-built excuse for crossing lines she never intended to take responsibility for. This was your parachute, I muttered. What? She asked, her voice cracking for the first time. This, I gestured to the screen, was your emotional escape plan. A soft landing. A way to blame me for the crash while you flew off with someone else. Her face twisted like I'd slapped her. That's not what it was. I was scared. I felt abandoned. You were abandoning me. I shot back, louder now. But you wrote this so you could pretend you were the victim if anyone ever found out. She flinched at that. Just slightly. But it was enough to tell me I'd struck something real. And then, like a reflex, she reached forward and deleted the draft. Just like that. Gone. I watched the screen as it vanished into the digital void. You're right, she whispered. It was a safety net. But not for me. For us. I thought if I wrote it, maybe you'd feel something again. Maybe you'd see me. I saw you, I said. I saw all of you. You just didn't like what I saw. For the first time since she returned, she didn't speak. Her mouth hung open like she had a response queued up, but it never loaded. Her defenses cracked. And through the silence, something shifted. She took a shaky breath. Do you want me to beg you to stay? I stared at her for a long moment. No, I said. Because the moment I need you to beg, we're already dead. I grabbed my bag again and turned back to the door. My hand was on the knob when she finally said it. It was Ben. 3 words. So quiet I almost didn't catch them. I froze. From the gym? I asked, not even sure I wanted confirmation. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I opened the door. And this time, I didn't look back. But I knew she was crying now. And for the first time, I didn't feel bad. 2 days passed. I didn't go far, just checked into a small roadside motel an hour north. The kind of place with flickering signs and vending machines that only accept exact change. I told myself it was temporary, just somewhere to clear my head. But deep down, I knew the longer I stayed, the less likely I was to return. The room smelled like bleach and loneliness. I slept on top of the sheets with my phone face down and my ring tucked in my wallet. The silence was unbearable, so I left the TV on constantly, even when I wasn't watching it, just to drown out the what-ifs. She didn't call. She didn't text. And I thought I was okay with that until I wasn't. I don't know why I went back. Maybe curiosity. Maybe masochism. Maybe part of me wanted to see if she'd moved on without even flinching. It was a Wednesday afternoon when I pulled into our driveway. Her car was there. The porch light was still broken, like I left it. The curtains drawn. And yet, something felt off. The front door was locked. I used my key. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon candles and that overpriced hair product she always swore she hated but kept using anyway. I walked quietly, slowly, like a stranger in a life I used to own. The first thing I noticed was that she hadn't touched the dining table. The laptop was gone, but the chair still sat pushed slightly back, like someone had gotten up mid-sentence. Then I heard it. Her voice. Faint. Muffled. Coming from the bedroom. She was on the phone. I should have turned around. I should have left. But instead, I stood in the hallway, just out of view. The bedroom door was half open. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. No, he hasn't called. I think he's done for real this time. A long pause. Yeah, I know. I didn't expect him to leave either. Her voice cracked slightly. I thought if he found out, he'd yell. Throw something. Break down. But he didn't even fight for me, Ben. He just walked away. Ben. The name hung in the air like poison. She continued, a little more desperate now. I thought I could fix it, or lie better. I don't know. But he looked at me like I was already gone. I leaned against the wall, heart pounding. My fingers curled into fists before I even realized it. I know what we said, she said, quieter now. But it doesn't matter anymore. He's not coming back. You don't have to worry. Another pause. Then something shifted in her voice. Ben, I'm not asking to move in. I don't know where else to go. Silence. I could hear the tremble in her breath. Yeah? Okay. I get it. Her voice cracked again. This time not out of fear or manipulation, but something close to realization. Or maybe rejection. She hung up. I waited 10 seconds. Then I stepped into the doorway. Her back was to me. She turned when she heard the creak in the floorboard. Eyes wide, mouth parted. Her phone was still in her hand. Waylon, she breathed. You're not very careful, I said. You never were. She stood up, slowly. Her voice caught in her throat. I didn't know you were. No, you didn't. I cut her off. Because you never really thought I'd come back. You assumed I'd vanish like a coward. You gambled, Holly. And you lost. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Just emptiness. I came back to grab my passport, I said. I didn't expect to catch the encore. She opened her mouth, maybe to defend herself, maybe to beg, but I walked past her, straight into the closet. Grabbed the small lockbox from the top shelf. The one that held my passport, a couple hundred in emergency cash, and an old photo of us from our second anniversary. I didn't even look at the photo. When I stepped out, she was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor like it might offer her a new version of this moment. I paused in the doorway one last time. You were right, I said. I didn't fight. She looked up, eyes glassy. Why? I took a breath. Not to calm down, but to make sure I said it right. Because fighting for someone who's already decided to leave isn't love. It's humiliation. I left her there, in that quiet, broken room. And this time, I didn't take the overnight bag. I took everything that still belonged to me. I hadn't been gone more than 36 hours when my phone lit up with a text from a number I hadn't saved, but recognized instantly. You free to talk? It was her brother, Caleb. I hadn't spoken to him in nearly a year. Holly always said he was too intense, too suspicious of everyone, especially her boyfriends. When we got married, she warned me not to get too close to him. Said he had a habit of meddling. Maybe I should have listened to him instead. I stared at the message for a while. I didn't want to open another door I couldn't close. But curiosity's a hell of a thing when trust is dead. Where? I replied. He sent back a location, a bar just outside the city, one of those dim-lit places that smelled like old wood and quiet regrets. When I walked in, he was already seated at a booth in the back, 2 beers on the table. He didn't stand, didn't smile. Just nodded like he'd been expecting me for years. I was wondering how long it'd take, he said. To do what? I asked. To finally see her. He replied, not even trying to sound delicate. I sat down. What do you know? He took a long sip before answering. Enough. Enough to know she's been lying for a long time. I didn't want to get in your business, Waylon. I really didn't. But it was hard watching you praise her online like she was some kind of saint when I knew she was checking into places she swore she'd never been. My blood ran cold. You saw her? Twice, he nodded. Once at a restaurant in Havenfield with a guy who definitely wasn't you. Once at a gas station off Route 7, dressed like she was headed to a club, not a yoga class. Both times she saw me. Both times she smiled and dared me to say anything. Why didn't you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked me straight in the eyes. Because I thought you deserved to figure it out on your own. And because I've seen what she does when she's cornered. She doesn't apologize, Waylon. She detonates. He wasn't wrong. She didn't crumble when I confronted her. She twisted the blame, tried to rewrite the story mid-sentence, made it about how I made her feel invisible, how my absence gave her permission to be unfaithful. I thought I was going crazy, I admitted. There were little things. Weird things. Nothing I could ever prove. But they stacked up. She's always been good at that, he said. Making you question the truth until you're apologizing for asking the question. I leaned back, letting the words settle. I hadn't come here to cry, but I felt the sting rise behind my eyes anyway. I blinked it back. Not now. Not here. Caleb tapped his fingers on the table. Look, I don't mean to kick you while you're down, but I've got something you need to see. He pulled out his phone, scrolled for a moment, then slid it across the table. It was a screenshot. An Instagram DM. From Holly. To his wife. Don't say anything to your husband, but I needed to vent. I'm starting to think I should have married Ben instead of Waylon. He actually makes me feel alive. My breath caught. The timestamp was from 3 months ago. Before the trip. Before the fight. Before I had written a single word. She sent this to your wife? I asked. Caleb nodded. My wife didn't show me until after you moved out. Said she didn't want to ruin the family. But she also said she's done playing Holly's shield. I stared at the screen for a long time, then quietly slid the phone back. I'm not surprised anymore, I said. And that scares me. Don't let her twist this, man, he said, more seriously now. You didn't lose her. She lost you. And she'll try to make you forget that. I left the bar feeling like the world was folding in on itself. All this time, I'd thought the betrayal was between me and her. But the rot was everywhere. It had spread into her family, my trust, our friends, even the foundation of who I thought I was in this marriage. And now I wasn't just walking away from a woman who lied. I was walking away from a reality that never existed in the first place. 2 days after the conversation with Caleb, I got the voicemail. I wasn't going to listen to it. I saw her name flash across the screen and nearly deleted it without thinking. But something, maybe morbid curiosity, maybe the foolish hope that she was finally ready to be honest, made me press play. Her voice was soft, shaky, but too shaky. Waylon, she said, dragging my name like it hurt her throat. I know you don't owe me anything. I know you probably hate me, but I need you to hear this. Please. Pause. I'm not okay. Pause. I've been having these thoughts. About disappearing. About how none of this would have happened if I'd just been better. I know I'm the villain in your story, but I didn't mean to be. I swear I didn't. I messed everything up and now I'm alone and I can't sleep and my chest hurts all the time and I just wanted you to know that if anything happens to me, it's not your fault. Click. Silence. The audio ended and my chest immediately tightened. Not with sympathy, with anger, because she was still doing it. Even now, even after everything had been uncovered, after all the layers of deceit, after I had walked away and made peace with the damage, she was still trying to control the narrative. Only this time, she wasn't painting me as the neglectful husband. Now she was shifting into something much darker, the abandoned, emotionally unstable victim. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because if I did, I'd step back into her script, the one where she baits me with guilt, lures me in with tears, and rewrites the past to suit her version of the truth. I wasn't going to let her do that. Not again. But the next morning, I got a call. Not from her. From her mother. Waylon, the woman said sharply. What the hell happened between you two? I'm sorry, I asked, caught off guard. Holly showed up at my house, crying like she'd been mugged. Said you screamed at her. Said you left her alone in the house with no explanation. Said you're threatening to expose private things about her to her job. Is that true? I nearly dropped the phone. No, I said, my voice calm but my hands shaking. None of that is true, not even remotely. Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then, she showed me the message you wrote. The one you left on your laptop. Oh, there it was. She took screenshots? I asked, already knowing the answer. She said it was a suicide note, her mom whispered. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of that hit me full force. She had weaponized the only thing I had left, my grief, my vulnerability, my honesty. She had twisted it into proof of emotional abuse. A document that was written in pain, not rage, now held up like it was a threat. I ended the call, sat in the motel chair for nearly an hour. Didn't move, didn't breathe right. I just stared at the wall and felt the sick, dizzying realization crawl up my spine. She wasn't done with me. She was going to burn everything on her way down. And if she couldn't pull me back with guilt, she'd drag me through the court of public opinion instead. By noon, 2 mutual friends had texted me asking if everything was okay with Holly. By evening, I got a LinkedIn message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, asking if I was involved in any kind of domestic situation. She had planted seeds, silent, poisonous seeds, and they were already sprouting. And here's the part that hurt the most. I wasn't even angry. I was terrified, because she wasn't trying to win me back. She was trying to ruin me. And the only way out now would be exposing her. Completely. I didn't respond to the messages. Not to her mother. Not to the friends. Not to the vague acquaintances suddenly interested in my side of the story. I didn't panic. I didn't try to explain. I didn't try to defend myself. Because that's what she wanted. A reaction. A signal that she still controlled the tempo of my life, even in absence. But I'd already decided I wasn't going to play anymore. The next day, I made a single phone call to a lawyer. Not to threaten. Not to fight. Just to protect myself. He was calm, professional, and more than familiar with situations like mine. He walked me through the process, step by step, and I followed quietly, feeling a strange sense of peace in the clarity of it all. When he asked if I wanted to file any kind of formal complaint against her for character defamation or emotional distress, I said no. Not because she didn't deserve it, but because I deserved peace more than she deserved punishment. I signed the papers, severed what needed to be severed, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I slept through the night. No phone by the bed, no waiting for footsteps outside the door, no noise, just silence. And in that silence, I found something I hadn't felt in so long I barely recognized it. Relief. Not victory. Not revenge. Not triumph. Just the lightness that comes from finally laying down a burden you didn't even realize you were carrying with both hands. A week later, I started running again. Not to burn off rage. Not to get in shape for some dramatic post-breakup transformation. I just wanted to breathe air that hadn't passed through lies first. I took Wallace, the half-dead fern, from the house when I left. At first, it was out of spite. I didn't want her to keep anything alive I'd once loved. But now, I water him every morning. And somehow, the leaves are finally turning green again. Funny, isn't it? Some things don't die when they're neglected. They just wait for the right environment to grow again. So do people. Last week, I met someone. Not romantically. Not yet. I'm not rushing toward anything. But she works at the bookstore I've been hiding in during the late afternoons, a quiet space with secondhand novels and cheap coffee. Her name's Elise. She laughs with her whole face. She didn't ask about my past. She just recommended a book about rebuilding things that once seemed ruined. I read it twice, and then I threw it away. Not because I didn't love it, but because I didn't need it anymore. This is the end of my story with Holly. There will be no more messages. No more half-finished goodbyes. No more wondering if I could have saved her or saved us. Because I finally realized something simple. You don't have to burn down the past to walk away from it. You just have to stop looking over your shoulder and keep walking. I'm Waylon. I was broken, but I'm healing now, and I'm not invisible anymore.